Do you want to record professional, realistic sounding guitar without having to spend big money on a huge physical amp? In this video, I'll compare some of the most popular guitar amp simulators on the market, and I'll share with you what I think are the best. One of the free softwares on the list is Logic Pro's built-in amp designer, but it's only going to work if you're using Logic Pro. Although Ableton does have built-in amplifier effects as well, they are nowhere near as good as Logic's. So Amp Designer is Logic's built-in guitar amp stock plugin, 25 heads, 25 cabinets, and you can change the kind of mics and the mic positioning. It integrates with Logic, so it's light on the CPU. Strengths are that it's very simple to use, it's convenient, very easy just to put on a channel, so very quick to get a sound going. Clean and light crunchy tones are quite good, and it works really well with Logic Pro's pedal board effect. Weaknesses: it doesn't sound amazing. The cleans, they do sound okay, but as soon as you want like a crunchy, heavily distorted guitar tone, I think it sounds a little bit underwhelming. So if you're doing heavy rock metal stuff, then I don't think this will suffice for you. If you just want a clean guitar sound though, maybe a bit of funk, maybe a bit of jazz, just something clean for some pop, then it will do the job. It does lack a bit of the realism that the kind of top third-party plugins do possess. If you do want to get the heavier tones, then I suggest trying it with the pedal board combination. If you bring in like a distortion pedal there, you can get a bit closer to the sound. So yeah, Logic Pro's Amp Designer works well if you're doing kind of sketches, demos, and if you're doing something clean, then you can get away with it. But you probably, if you want a really pro sound, then this probably isn't the one to go for. Next up is Waves GTR 3. I didn't love it, I'll be honest. It's one of the earlier digital sims, and I think the sound quality reflects that. Interestingly though, it was developed with the guy from PRS, Paul Reed-Smith, so that's quite cool. It includes amps, cabs, stomp boxes, and a DI tool. It's kind of bundled in a compact package, so if you want something quick and easy, this might be a good option for you, but it's never going to sound professional enough, in my opinion, for a real mix. So strengths: it's light on CPU and it's easy to use. Has good clean tones, but as soon as you go to medium gain, like high gain, just forget it, it's not good enough, in my opinion. So it is very affordable, it's like 30 euros, so for that, it's nothing. So if you just want to pick it up and try, then you can really. Weaknesses: the modeling is dated, the amp sounds dated, it lacks a bit of realism, to be honest. There is definitely limited tone flexibility and a variety of tones compared to Amplitude or even Guitar Rig. The GUI is quite basic, the software is quite basic in general. For a quick and easy bit of a guitar sim, yeah, it's fine, but I wouldn't want it to be any more than that. So it's good if you're just on a budget, really. So it's probably a step up from Logic Pro's Amp Designer, but not a huge step up. If you're looking to upgrade from Logic Pro Amp Designer, then I would definitely go another rung up the ladder. Okay, next we have the Neural Amp Modeler, NAM, and this is completely free, and it's not to be confused with Neural DSP, although they're both called Neural. They are slightly different. And this is free, open source, which is amazing. Developer Stephen Atkinson, I think, and it's a kind of community project where everybody uploads tones to a website, and you can get all of these people's modeled amps that they've kind of created the impulse responses for. And NAM uses machine learning to capture the sound of the amp, real amps, pedals, and signal chains. Kind of like a free online version of a Kemper. And users can share, upload different amp captures, and it's a big whole community around it. And they do that to tonehunt.org. So that's where you have to go to download each amp. So strengths: it's extremely realistic. The captures can sound almost identical to the real amps. It's totally free and community driven. Thousands of amps that you can choose from. The software itself is really lightweight and flexible, and it works with many DAWs and impulse responses. Weaknesses: the UI itself is very basic. Like, there's no real fancy effects. It's like almost like a sampler or like an amp capture loader. There's no built-in cabs or pedals, no effects. You will need to use an effects chain after it if you want like reverbs and flanges and whatever, distortions. And it does depend on the capture methods, like, and who captured it. Did they do a good job? Not all of the community models sound amazing. Next up, Native Instruments guitar rig, currently on version 7, though I think the last one I was using was version 4 or 5. It's 150 euros. Native Instruments guitar rig is very creative, can do lots of effects with it. I think it works well for both guitarists and sound designers. You've got amp modeling, you've got effects, you've got cabinets, you've got delays, filters, and a lot more of these experimental effects. This is where I'd say it has its advantage. If you want some more interesting, creative tones, then maybe this would be the better one to go for. I'd say the strength is it has a very kind of modular rack system. You can build some pretty wild like effects chains with it within the software. I think it works really well for ambient and cleans as well, but yeah, particularly kind of ambient. I always felt like the distortion side let it down, and this is where I felt Amplitude was better than Guitar Rig. It's easy to use though, it has quite a simple drag and drop interface. Yeah, before the latest version, version 7, like I would say the tones weren't realistic enough to use. That's why I had Guitar Rig, but then chose to upgrade to Amplitude. Supposedly in version 7 though, the modeling has been greatly improved, so you'll have to check it out. I haven't done so yet. Though I hear it's still not as in the room kind of sounding as say the number 1 pick, especially when it comes to heavier genres. Next is IK Multimedia Amplitude 5, 230 euros. I got it in a Black Friday sale with the Total Max bundle. Totally recommend that when it comes on sale. It has over 400 different amp models, and it's a combination of amps, cabs, mics, bass amps, pedals, racks, detailed cabinet simulation using volumetric impulse response, VIR. And it's known for its detailed cabinet simulation. And you can move the mics around, which is really cool. And there's also quite flexible routing options as well, so you can kind of change the routing. So yeah, strengths, very flexible routing. You can run multiple rigs in one plugin. It's really good for clean, bluesy sounds and overdriven tones. You can get some metally tones out of it as well. There's loads of models to choose from, and they do sound really good in my opinion. You've got Fenders, you've got Mesa Boogies. I particularly love the Soldano. Interface, GUI is okay, I think it looks all right, and at least they've got the legitimate licensing, whereas a lot of the other ones don't have real licensing from the amps. They'll be under a different name, or they'll look a little bit like a Fender Tweed, but it's not quite a Fender Tweed. Some say the models sound a little polite, like they're not quite distorted and grunty enough. So if you do want some of those metal tones, then maybe it's best to go for the number 1 on the list. And unfortunately, this plugin does use a fair amount of CPU, so if you're on a laptop or whatever that can't handle too much, then this might be an issue for you. However, this is actually my favorite of all of the amps on the list, even though it's not in the number 1 slot. I just think it's the most versatile. I think it's the best all-rounder. I think it sounds great. I think it looks all right. And I think there's lots of amps to choose from. But most importantly, I think it sounds really good. And because I'm not a metalhead, maybe I don't need those super high gainy kind of tones. But I have got some nice classic rock tones out of it as well. So I think you can probably get there with a bit of persuasion. And coming in at number 1 is the Neural DSP plugins. Neural DSP makes artist-sponsored, ultra-realistic amps. They're modeled on real guitarists. So you've got stuff like Corey Wong, John Petrucci, Tim Henson. There's quite a lot of these, so you can get quite a diverse array of tones. And they sound incredible, by the way. It uses advanced neural network, models the amp's behavior really closely, captures the amp behavior, cabinet, and also the mic response. So this software is known for being really polished, really good sound quality. It has mix-ready tones. So the strengths, probably the most realistic sounding amp tones on the market, I would say. Each plugin is fine-tuned to a genre, really. So if you want a metal pack, you'd get like John Petrucci or someone. If you wanted more like a funky tone, you might go for the Corey Wong. Each pack is kind of a different tone, a different sound. It has excellent built-in effects and cabinet IR, impulse responses, so you don't necessarily need to add extra plugins on afterwards. The UI is nice and it's consistent across the different models. So yeah, really good. Weaknesses. It's expensive as each model is a standalone person, so you have to buy each one individually and they aren't cheap. So it costs between 120 to 150 euros per amp simulator, if you like. So, you know, that's quite a lot for one amp. And there is limited flexibility within this, like the actual versatility of each individual one isn't that high, but you get one that does something really well. Or you get 2 or 3 different packs, one for each kind of genre that you're interested in, but by then you've spent like 400 euros. So it's pricey, and that is the con, and that is actually why I don't use it. So although it's my favorite, because it's so expensive and not very versatile, this is why I don't use it. Also, the CPU usage can be quite high. Let me know in the comments which amp sims you use. Do you agree with the list? Did I miss any big ones? UAD maybe? And if you can't play guitar, there is an alternative. I have some amazing sounding guitar samples. I spent 6 months meticulously recording my American Deluxe Fender Telecaster. She's a beauty, and I painstakingly recorded every single note, every single sample, so many different articulations, and there's close to 5,000 different samples in this guitar sample pack. Available on my website, link in the description below. That is the ad. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on another video.